welcome to Impactful Innovation, the series that tells the stories of the ways in which technology is shaping our lives, our work, and the world around us. I'm David McClelland, and in episode 7 we looked at how non-terrestrial networks, or NTNs, have developed rapidly to complement our connectivity mix. But that connectivity shouldn't be taken for granted, and as we've heard throughout the series, there are some surprisingly large parts of the world which, for a whole variety of reasons, have remained relatively digitally disconnected. And that's our focus for today, understanding and serving the underserved. And I'm excited to be joined by guests who understand at first hand the challenges and opportunities there, including, joining me here in the studio, Consulting VP for Africa at Commercis, Amewudah. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, David.
So talk to me about your background in industry, particularly as it pertains to our topic today, serving regions that are traditionally less well served.
Yes, well, I've spent 20 years in telecommunications, and my role in Commercis is really supporting the team to develop the propositions and the services they need in Africa. Now, that can be from setting up the offices directly or maybe through channel partners.
Africa, it's easy to think of it, and we've discussed that in a previous episode, haven't we, as one country, but it's 58, 59, it's a lot of countries all in one.
Yeah.
You are Consulting VP for Africa at Commercis. What does that practically mean for you?
It's about prioritizing the countries that Commercis can easily serve because of the solutions that it deploys, and it's around helping them pitch those solutions, develop the service propositions in those areas to be able to serve them well.
Key to that is understanding those countries, understanding what the challenges are, understanding what their needs are, and therefore, obviously, what the opportunities are. But understanding's definitely the key there.
Yeah, you can't just go with what you did next door. You really have to study the region, study locally, and look at what it needs, and make sure that when you pitch and you provide the solution, it encompasses more than just actually what the customers ask for.
Yeah.
I guess we'll talk about that later.
And I really do want to pick up on that in just a moment's time, because it's time now to hear from our Zoom In and Zoom Out guests. Dr. Cosmas Zavazava is the Director of the Telecommunication Development Bureau at the ITU, a specialised agency of the United Nations for Information and Communications Technologies. And his focus is very squarely on connecting the yet-to-be connected. Around 1/3 of the global population is yet to be connected. What does your work tell you about the current state of connectivity, particularly in underserved and rural areas?
Well, it is like someone talking about eliminating poverty. It's a talk that has been there for many, many years. We can talk about poverty alleviation. Connectivity, we wanted to eliminate and to have universal, meaningful, affordable connectivity, but it is a journey, it is not an event. The state of play is that we still have about 44 countries that are defined by the United Nations as least developed countries. They are weak in terms of human capital. They are vulnerable in terms of natural disasters, and also vulnerable to external economic shocks. So infrastructure is difficult, and if we come to Africa, the land size is massive, and it is difficult to make sure that we connect everyone using the technology that we have. Of course, in some cases, we use satellite communications. We are concerned about rural-urban divide because the majority of the people in Africa, for example, and other developing countries are based in rural areas. In the least developed countries, we have over 70% of the population being women and children, and they live in the rural areas. They are living, and they can't trade their ways. They cannot participate in the digital economy, and that worries us. We are also concerned about women in some parts of the world who remain offline and unconnected, and when they get connected, they are harassed online, and sometimes it translates itself to physical harm. And cybersecurity becomes a key issue. We are concerned about children that go online. And when they go online, we must ensure child online protection to make sure that they are online and they are very safe. So those are some of the issues that we look at. We are worried about people with disabilities. And as they say, disability does not mean inability. We have to make sure that they too participate and they have access, they have the skill sets. We are worried about those people who don't have digital skills. And it is our duty to make sure that we provide the skills that they need. So access is important, skills are important, but the use, meaningful use of their connectivity is actually important. We wanted to bridge the digital divide and make sure that more and more people join the bandwagon and they enjoy the services and the dividends that come with the digital connectivity. And that is very important. Affordability is a critical element. We want the services to be affordable. And we always tell governments it is better for you not to charge too much tax when people are importing smartphones, etc. Downstream, you can always charge and recover the money that you need for the fiscus. So it is important. We want the services also to provide a platform for trade, and that is very important for economies.
You've reflected there on something that I reflected on myself earlier on in this series, was about how it's easy to talk about connectivity in purely a technological sense. We don't have 3G, 4G, 5G, subsea cables, fiber connectivity, and so on. But actually, what we're talking about is humans being connected, and it's heartening to hear that. It's very much in your philosophy. But from a technical point of view, what do you see as being the key barriers to enabling greater connectivity in some of these less developed countries that you named there?
Yeah, I think you already referred to the issue of the networks. Many of the least developed countries or landlocked developing countries and the countries developing, they are stuck with the 2G, 3G, and some 4G. And a few of them have access to 5G connectivity, which is very important for us at this particular moment. You know that we are in an era of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is data hungry. So it needs data. And the more people we get connected, the more data is available for the AI models to operate effectively. When you go to Europe, for example, many of the countries are switching off 3G because 5G is readily available. And the services under 3G are the same services provided by 3G. Of course, many of them are leaving 2G to be operational because of the humanitarian services that 2G provides. But it must be a choice. So we are worried that the digital divide is also caused by lack of access infrastructure, appropriate infrastructure. And we would like to make sure that people get connected with the latest equipment or networks that is available. Satellite communication seems to be quite a technology of choice because you can beam and also let the people in rural, remote areas have equal access, fast connectivity, which is essential for them to be doing meaningful activities like electronic commerce, etc., etc. So it is important. We think the barriers, some of them could be regulatory barriers, which the regulators have to address. Some of them are industry barriers because they don't want to go to non-profit areas where the return on investment is not guaranteed. And it's not their fault, of course, they have to survive. But as a good citizen, we encourage that they be able to reach out even to remote areas. And what we have done is that we have devised with the regulators an initiative where we have what we call universal access, or a universal service fund, where every operator in a jurisdiction contributes to a fund. And any operator who goes to remote areas where it is not profitable gets a subsidy. And then they can have a motivation to go there. So those are some of the barriers. Digital skills. There are many people, and it depends on the age. For us, people between the ages of 15 and 24 are youth. And those are the most active online. They have the digital skills. We call them digital natives. But when you look at the other age groups, they don't have the skills. So you may give them a smartphone, they will underutilize it, and it's no use. So we want to make sure everybody has got the skills. There are also cultural issues that prevent certain individuals, like women, girls, to be connected and to be online. And we try to appeal to the countries to make sure that this should be seen as an advantage rather than a threat. So those are some of the barriers that we encounter. Innovation, too much regulation stifles innovation by industry. And so we want responsible innovation, in fact, responsible regulation, which will encourage investment and connectivity and the use of those technologies.
And what are the innovations or initiatives or indeed investments that are having the most impact in connecting the unconnected here? Are there any specific countries or regions or initiatives that have made significant strides that we might be able to learn from elsewhere?
Fantastic. So we have a lot of projects that fit into this bill. For example, we launched it together with the private sector, Cisco, if I may say, and NORAD, a development agency. We launched a project on digital transformation centers, where we have set up centers in rural areas, and we try to use those centers to train rural communities so that they can understand how to connect and how to connect safely and how to have a meaningful outcome out of their connectivity. We also have what we call ITU Academy training centers, which focus on people in middle management and upper management in government or public institutions. We also have what we call the ITU Academy, which provides training services and self-paced training modules for people to be connected and to learn how they can use modern technology for them to advance their socio-economic development and the participation in the global economy. So those are some of them. We also have an initiative which we call Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which I launched in January 2023, where we set up centers, what we call acceleration centers. And we have 17 of those across the world, where people can go and get connected through computers which have got high processing powers. And they can go there, get a training. Startups can go and test their ideas and use the platform for them to be connected. They can use it also for training. So we have found that to be very helpful. It's an innovation that we think is appreciated by our member states. As you well know, we have 194 member states and over 1,000 private sector and academic institutions who are our members. We also have what we call Smart Village, Smart Island project. I just returned from Pakistan, where I went to Islamabad and the surrounding areas where we were launching a number of smart villages. And there, under one roof, you will find connectivity present. You can use that connectivity for medical consultations, telemedicine for people in rural, remote areas, mountainous areas, connecting with a doctor who is in an urban setting, who can provide consultation and guide and prescribe medication to save lives. And that's important. The Smart Island, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago and in Samoa, we have got fishermen who find themselves in the high seas, fishing and trying to make a living. First of all, they can determine when to bring their catch to the market because of the market prices that are favorable at that moment. And in most cases, they don't have refrigeration. So when they arrive, they have got to sell. Secondly, for alerting them, we use that connectivity to alert them that there is a disaster which is impending. It could be a tsunami, it could be a hurricane, it could be a typhoon, and they use their connectivity for saving lives. And if a disaster strikes, we use our connectivity also to make sure that food distribution, shelter, medication is done on time. in a timely manner. So these are some of the innovations that we have. We launched recently a big project called Early Warnings for All, with a target to make sure that by 2027, every living human being is within reach of an alert. Before a disaster strikes, they are alerted. If it is a tsunami, they can be told to go to higher ground, and so that their lives are saved. So we have this element. Those are some of the innovations that are keeping us awake at night. And in the Pacific Islands, almost all of them have benefited from our Smart Island project, which is setting up centers where the local population goes and it gets connected and use the facilities which are there, which may not be personalized or personal facilities, but communal facilities, and make sure that they too are covered and they're enjoying digital dividends.
We've spoken about the digital divide, but with technologies like artificial intelligence entering the mainstream in some parts of the world, the impact of that divide may only become more and more stark. How do you think that connectivity gap can best be bridged?
Yeah, technology is a moving target, so it keeps evolving. Industry doesn't sleep. They keep on innovating. And the digital divide will raise its ugly head as a result of that, because the countries which are less developed will take time to catch up. And also policy formulation and policy implementation, legal frameworks and regulatory frameworks lag behind the emergence of technology. So it is a big challenge that we face every day. I believe that it is very important for us to make sure that we open doors to new technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and make sure that we double up our effort to make sure we develop digital skills which will help people to embrace the new technologies. But investment is the key to make sure that connectivity is available, the infrastructure is available. We are worried about countries like landlocked developing countries that do not have direct access to submarine cables, and some of them are doubly landlocked. And if they are at war with their neighbors, coastal countries, it means they don't have connectivity. And then because of their distance from submarine cables, they also have limited bandwidth, so the speed is compromised, but the cost is very high. And we are concerned about particularly the submarine cables, because from time to time they are cut by natural disasters like earthquakes, and a disruption or shutdown of internet occurs. But sometimes they are cut by sabotage or because of sabotage. So we wanted to make sure that we implement resilient infrastructure in terms of those cables for them to continue to be operational and to connect to the people. And as you said, my motto since I took office is BDT, for the Telecommunication Development Bureau, for impact. So I don't care about talking about the algorithms, the models, and so forth. I care about the impact we are making on real people. We have to make sure that everybody is connected, they take advantage, and we are talking about sustainable development goals. And many countries are lagging behind in getting 2030 to deliver the SDGs. And we know that digital can drive this and double up the effort, and we make an impact on people. So artificial intelligence is good. It also comes with its ills like deepfake, hallucination, falsehoods. We must have a governance structure and make sure that we educate people to be able to be dealing with these challenges, and in the right way, not to kill artificial intelligence, but to coexist with the humans and to make sure that it delivers on the message.
Cosmas Zavazava, thank you very much indeed for chatting with us today.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
We're very grateful to Dr. Zavazava for his time to speak with us. For our Zoom In case study today, we go to Eastern Africa and the Somalian coastline, where Saeed Jama is the CEO of a community company building a seaport benefiting from communications and automation technology to provide a much appreciated boost to the local economy.
My name is Saeed Jama. I am the CEO of Wadaagsan Company. Wadaagsan is just a community company which has brought a number of influential community people who are various background, business people, professionals, teachers, university, elders, different kind of people who have come together to implement a modern seaport in a small fishing town in central Somalia, in the Indian Ocean, along the Indian Ocean.
It sounds very ambitious. So tell me more about this seaport in Somalia that you're building. We'll come to maybe the technology and the automation and the role that plays in a moment. But first of all, the context in which you're building this seaport, because, of course, the recent history in Somalia has been somewhat challenging, hasn't it?
Garacad, the place is called Garacad. And the people who live there have had the ambition to build a port in that location of Somalia, in that Indian Ocean location of Somalia. Is in the middle of two main ports in Somalia, Bosaso and Mogadishu ports. Although the distance is quite far, about 800 kilometers, and with no paved roads. When maybe there are roads that it wouldn't have been a problem, but now there are no paved roads that connect this area to those main ports. So our objective for this port is to become in fact a gateway for trade for the local people who live in central Somalia as well as eastern Ethiopia, where they can export food, construction material, spare parts, vehicles or cars, medicine, and all those they buy from. It will also give them an opportunity to export the locally produced things like livestock and also and agricultural produce, which are abundant in eastern Ethiopia and also in central Somalia. So this is a great an economic opportunity, which we expect to create an opportunities for young people, for the traders, and create employment opportunities for the youth. Also for the people who live in the coastal area, who have who are fishers, and it will give them an opportunity to catch their fish. We'll have some facilities to put them in freezers, and then in the long term maybe to export their catch to the overseas. In terms of the technology and the innovation, the ports are run by a private company, and we need to be different from other ports in Somalia or in the Horn of Africa by taking advantage of the available technologies and utilize automation and the new technologies of artificial intelligence and all that. We are starting with small systems that can maybe make the operation of the port more efficient and less time consuming, and add maybe minimize the time for using the services provided by the port, and with more convenience.
It's a big project you're undertaking there. You are opening the gates both inward and outward. Technology's playing a role in making that as efficient as it can be. But what's the impact that you hope this innovation will have locally?
This port will bring change, or in fact, to be honest, will have a dramatic change to the economic activities of the local people and in the region. It will bring maybe fuel depots. It will bring storage systems. It will bring big companies to come and invest in Garacad port and in Garacad area. It will connect the trade from Ethiopia to Somalia. So this is a very important in terms of location. It's very important in terms of trade, and I'm expecting that when Garacad port is fully completed, the road is paved and the remaining parts of the port is construction is completed, it will be a huge impact in the economic activities of the region, in the Horn of Africa region and beyond.
Saeed, I wish you all the best with the rest of the seaport build. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Very exciting project. Thanks again to Saeed. Eyes, two very different conversations there, but one overriding theme, I'm sure you'll agree. What are your reflections from those chats?
Well, firstly, Dr. Zavazava, he captured the essence, the real issue, as far as I'm concerned too, which is getting the equipment to site, getting it set up, getting it maintained. That's the real biggest challenge in some of these rural areas. I mean, the roads just do not exist.
So for all of the digital connectivity that we're very happy to talk about, there are still physical limitations, physical infrastructure limitations that inhibit progress in some ways. What sort of things can be done to overcome that, apart from laying more roads?
Yeah, that's expensive. But what can be done is the equipment needs to be smaller. For example, we've seen it that the satellite dishes, it was only a few years ago that the smallest one you could get was like 0.75 meters. Now they're as big as a laptop. So equipment size is really no loss of power, but actually equipment. And that brings us on to power itself. You need to think about, how do I get the power? How do I maintain the power? Again, solar developments are getting more and more efficient. Things are getting smaller. Then once I've got it there and I've got it set up, I need to be able to train people to maintain it. So that's another challenge that we need to overcome. And also, one of the biggest areas I see for AI growth is in telemetry around the solution that you deployed, so that you know early when something is about to break. So you can plan your 3-week journey if need be, or you can train your people locally to do something, coupled with an analysis of the spares that you use. No longer is it just plucking spares out of the sky and saying, this is a list. Now you can study them through AI. So I think that's going to be a big advantage for solutions providers by deploying AI to look at spares analysis.
And it's thinking operationally, isn't it? You know, we can install a bit of tin anywhere and cross our fingers and hope
Absolutely.
that it works. But the reality is that there needs to operate reliably, to have spares, to have a whole ecosystem around it to support it through its operational life.
Yes.
What did you make of what Saeed had to say at Garacad Seaport?
Well, Saeed captured what we're seeing more and more at Commercis, which is solution providers, we have to look at the wider benefits of our solution. We're not just asked to connect A to B, right? We have to look at everything to see where best we can contribute to the growth of the community or the service of the community. I'll give you an example. You think of a university campus. They're always wanting connectivity solutions for the students to study and do the research and so on. So the room that houses the equipment, which may have to be purpose-built, especially if it's a mobile communication tower or something like that. Normally, they're put in the back somewhere where it can't be seen. It's one of those rooms that, it's really secure and nobody needs to. But actually, putting those rooms in the center of campus can be a real advantage to the students because it lights up the way, because we've got power into the building, we can put buildings. It lights up the way for them to go from their halls of residence to the library in the evening, which can sometimes be quite a treacherous thing. You can put CCTV on there as well. Another example could be in that campus, why not house it close to the science labs so that we can put refrigerators in there so that all the samples and things that they use as part of training the students can be housed safely, because the communications unit needs 24/7 power. and it's probably the only place on the campus that can guarantee 24/7 power.
So it's more broad thinking, I guess, in this context. It's
Absolutely.
not obviously it's an understanding of what the core requirement is, but it's also taking a step back and maybe a collaboration with other stakeholders or potential stakeholders to understand if, well, in building this, in operating this, there are some peripheral benefits which could actually become primary benefits to other stakeholders too.
Yes, let's take another example. Building a government initiative to build schools and put internet into schools. Many schools always being built across Africa as they are. Why not think about the capacity, the internet capacity, being re-switched to people's homes in the evening? Because the capacity has already been paid for.
Yeah.
It's not being used, so why can't we switch it to homes or community centres to better serve the community? So those are the sorts of things that we need to think about, because for a small additional cost, there's a greater benefit.
And it strikes me that this way of thinking, it reduces inefficiency, it reduces duplication, and it really maximizes what you are installing, what you are operating, which is really important when resources, whether that's physical stuff or whether it's things like energy and bandwidth and so on, are somewhat limited. You need to make the most of what you are installing. But it's that broader thinking which strikes me as the real challenge here, not the technology at all. It's even thinking about what the other stakeholder requirements and opportunities could be.
Yes, and I think solutions providers need to be bold. We need to visit the area, we need to survey the area, we need to look and understand what is happening in that particular community and how can the solution that is being asked for be augmented to provide additional benefit.
But this comes back to the point that we made back in the introduction about understanding and about what your role is. It's about understanding what the needs are and what the opportunities are, rather than just a kind of one-size-fits-all, spoiler, one-size-fits-all fits no one approach. Really interesting. Just to start to wrap up this conversation, we're impactful innovation here, and we're looking at the impacts of technologies now, and our horizon is 2030 nominally. Start to look at the impact of this connectivity right now when we are serving, understanding and then serving the underserved. How do you describe the impact today? And then as we start to look forward to 2030, how do you start to apply this and what the benefits could be in the next 4 or 5 years' time?
The impact today is that solutions are providing a greater benefit to the wider community. The impact in the future, 5 years on perhaps, is because of this ubiquitous connectivity, rural areas in Africa will now have access to subject matters experts around the world, which means that telemedicine will be prolific. Someone in New York can be overseeing an operation that is taking place in somewhere in Tanzania, for example, in a rural community. And all the equipment, all the prepping, all the education that's needed to perform the operation successfully and monitor it subsequently is there. So telemedicine then takes off. The rural areas will have access to top engineers to do training. We don't have to necessarily move out of the country now to get top quality training. It can be done. The person who's undertaking that training can stay in the local community and serve the local community and contribute to the growth. I see this as communication as going wider than building roads. It's going to be faster to do that than actually build the roads and bring all the equipment in.
And what it strikes me from what you've just spoken about there is how traditionally, if you lived in a small village, small community, small town, and you were technically minded or had some career aspirations that weren't able to be met by where you lived because of communications challenges, whatever they may be, you would leave that community.
Absolutely.
And you would go to the nearest city, the nearest capital, or even go abroad and so on, resulting in a kind of brain and talent drain in these communities. But what you're describing here with innovations in communication technologies, I wouldn't need to leave. I have the communication, I have everything that I potentially would need, and I could remain closer to where I would ideally like to be. And that represents a kind of cultural, societal change enabled by innovation, technology, not just more money, better patient outcomes and so on, but a real change in the kind of fabric of a society as a result of this. And that's really exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Ais, thank you for opening my mind to that. That wasn't somewhere I expected to go in this conversation, but I'm really, really pleased that we did. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Next time here on Impactful Innovation, we're heading back to the future of the network and connectivity with a guest academic and entrepreneur who are pushing communications technologies into the final frontier. Yes, lots of space networks coming up in episode 9 of Impactful Innovation with Commercis. But until then, from everybody here, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.